I'm assuming this will be the only applause I will be getting, so I will take what I can get. This was all Larry Latham's idea. I will note he is the Finance Committee Chairman of the Residents Council. All right, folks, we have a lot to cover. Generally, we only do the budget. We do have a couple small wrinkles. One is we always do the Employee of the Month. We never want to miss that. So, I'm going to read a little bit about what was said about our Employee of the Month for November. This person comes from Dining Services. Some comments that were made by residents, coworkers, and supervisors are: he is an outstanding employee and a leader. He assists other departments, often filling in for managers in their absence. Very pleasant person to work with. An essential key to the Dining Services team. Ensures that the staff are properly trained to meet the highest expectations. Consistently goes above and beyond. Has exceptional knowledge of the food items we offer to make sure our residents are eating and staying healthy. And for these reasons and many more, he deserves to be Employee of the Month. Our winner this month is Chase Hill. Chase, come on up, Chase. Chase is our lead diet aid supervisor, and I can testify to the fact that he is a superstar. We are blessed to have him. I appreciate him tremendously. How long have you been with us?
8 years.
8 years.
Almost 9.
Chase has been with us 8 years, almost 9, so very, very cool. All right, Chase, I'm going to go ahead and give you this pin that you can attach to your badge so everybody knows you're Employee of the Month. I am going to give you this plaque that you can display to make sure all of your coworkers know how awesome you are. I have the original letter with all the true and lovely things said about you and $200 cash. Turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. This, I don't really have the words to kind of express how I feel, except it fills my heart to know that all the work that we put in to make sure that all of you are happy and getting everything that you deserve and need is seen, and just thank you. Appreciate this. Love it.
That was a long time coming. Was that your first time, Chase? That was a long time coming. Congratulations. I'm sorry it took so long. All right. Before we go ahead and get started with our presentation, we have 2 Quilts of Valor that are going to be awarded, and I would like to call the folks that are going to be responsible for presenting those up to the stage so that we can properly have them presented.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to be here right before Veterans Day to honor 2 of the close to 100 veterans that we have living with us. My name's Cecilia Dahl, and I've been a resident here for just under 2 years, and I'm also a member of Quilts of Valor and a member of the Village Quilters. We have a number of Village Quilters here. Would you stand up just so people know who some of you are? Thank you. As a representative of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, it's my responsibility to inform others about Quilts of Valor and to encourage groups and individuals to join us in making quilts that honor, comfort, and encourage groups to join us in making quilts that honor, comfort, and heal our service members and veterans touched by war. Quilts of Valor Foundation is a grassroots foundation of quilters from all across the United States. In 2003, a quilter named Catherine Roberts had the idea of comforting veterans with quilts during the time her son was deployed in Iraq. Since then, over 233,000 quilts, that's up from 220,000 the last time I was here, have been awarded here in the United States. Our mission is to honor our service members and veterans who have been touched by war with Quilts of Valor. Our foundation represents one human reaching out and touching another, without judgment, reaching out with acceptance and with acknowledgement of service to our nation. We believe that as we sow, love, caring and gratitude flow from our hearts, through our hands, into the quilts we make. All of us as quilters want you to know that through our quilts, you are forever in our hearts. Please know that many hands went into creating these. It may have been someone who designed the quilt, it may have been someone who cut fabric, it may have been someone who donated fabric. It may also have been someone who actually pieced it, someone who quilted it, someone who bound it, someone who put a name tag on it, someone who made the carrying case that we have for them. So know that there are many people who appreciate what you've done. It's an expression of gratitude and meant to thank and comfort you. We honor you for leaving all you hold dear to serve, whether in time of crisis or in time of peace. This Quilt of Valor unequivocally says thank you for your service, sacrifice, and valor in serving our nation. We hope this helps to bring you comfort and honor, though we may never know the depth of your service to protect and defend the United States of America. As a gesture of gratitude from a grateful nation, we ask each of you to please come forward as I call your name to accept your Quilt of Valor. It is my honor to award the following individuals with their Quilt of Valor on behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation and the Village Quilters. First, Jake Seabrook is a U.S. Air Force veteran. Do you want to come up, Jake? Jake, you're a retired major, right? Retired major? Affirmative. Jake flew 100 combat missions in Korea and 85 missions in Vietnam. My father-in-law flew 30-some and during World War II, and that's just astonishing. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and Air Medal with 12 clusters. Thank you so much, Jake, for your service. Second, Jerry Sidwell. Oh, I'm sorry, am I running your slides through? Apologize. Put that down? Okay. Jerry Sidwell is a U.S. Navy veteran. He was a gunner's mate while deployed in Korea. His ship, the USS Los Angeles, was in battle on, is it Wonsan? Wonsan Harbor, the longest naval blockage in modern history. The ship took fire from the beach and was hit several times. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for your service. On behalf of the Quilts of Valor Foundation and a grateful nation, and with our deepest appreciation, we thank you each for your service to our country with this Quilt of Valor Award. Thank you, and most importantly, welcome home. On each quilt is a label that will tell you a little bit about this quilt. As of today, the story of this quilt becomes your story. We hope you will keep this quilt with you as a tangible reminder that there are thousands of women and men across this land who are forever in your debt, and that it is our pleasure to honor you with a Quilt of Valor. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, quilters. It's amazing how humble folks are. I did not know that about Jake nor Jerry, and that's absolutely wonderful. So thank you. Thank you both very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple quick things I want to talk about, and we'll do more with it in December because we do have limited time. We had an Alzheimer's walk on Saturday, and it was the first time we hosted it here at the Village on our campus, and the first time the idea was floated my way, I didn't like the idea that much, and I thought more about it, and I'm like, you know what, I think it's a great idea, and the turnout absolutely confirmed, without a doubt, that was the right idea, and that is what we will do from here on out. So the Village raised over $10,000 to be donated to the Alzheimer's Awareness Foundation and help support research to hopefully find a cure for that horrible and evil disease. And we could not have even come close to that without you and your support. We had a lot of family members that came to the barbecue. A whole village. It took a whole village to raise that $10,000, and I just want to say thank you and congratulations for your contribution to finding a cure. The other item, and we will have some video that was collected from the Alzheimer's Walk that we'll show at our December village meeting. In addition, we will have some video to show from our pet parade. We had a Halloween pet parade. 24 residents and their pets, dogs primarily, if not exclusively, came, and some of them that were dressed up in a kind of tandem costume, others it was just the dog. It was absolutely unbelievable. It was an idea that was brought forward by our pet owners group. They did a wonderful job. We paraded around, we stopped at the dog park, we awarded the best couple, as well as, for lack of a better term, and the best individual dog dressed up, and it was a lot of fun. And then we had a Halloweeny roast to christen our grill. So, and the grill is unbelievable. We have a lot of people ask as to whether or not they can use that space for themselves to entertain family and friends. The answer is yes. We met and have worked through some policies and procedures in hopes of setting that up for success. But I can tell you firsthand, it is absolutely a wonderful grill. It can do just about anything you want, and you could cook for about an army on it. So we are all set out there, and the front desk is the one that will be managing that program. If you have questions, just go see Mimi. She's equipped with the answers, and we can get you set up to reserve that space to be used for a family event. So, all right, last but not least, yesterday, Leading Age Arizona, a group that we belong to that represents all the not-for-profit senior living communities in Arizona, had their annual Leading Age Fitness Challenge, Senior Fitness Challenge, and the village, of course, participated, and our group brought home the championship. So, yes, it was awesome. Justin Aringas brought home the gold medal for the half-mile walk. Kathy Crawford brought home the gold medal for the half-mile walk for ladies. The silver medal for the obstacle course. I would hate to see the person that beat her because I got to watch her do it. I can assure you it wouldn't have been me. Jay Adler brought home the silver medal for men for the obstacle course, and Barbara Brownlee over in the fitness center is their coach, and she is absolutely awesome. You can see how proud she is with that trophy. That made my heart very happy, and I want to thank you folks for representing Friendship Village there, for winning that championship. And we get to hold that traveling trophy for a whole year until next year when we have to return it, and we might just take it back again. So, congratulations and thank you all. We hand these things out. You can make notes on them. They are yours. Generally, we ask you to turn them back in so that we can make sure that every single person gets one. And if you made notes, put your name and apartment or cottage number on it. We're not going to do that this year. If you want, you can turn it in. Here's the deal. There's one of these right now being put in your mailbox. We will hold on to the ones if you want to turn them in on the way out, knowing that you have one in your mailbox. You can keep it too. It's going to be like a half a tree, maybe a small limb that we're going to waste. But if you want to turn it in, we'll hold those at the front desk for people that didn't get it or lost it or whatever the case may be. Mimi will have extras. So if you want to turn it in, great. I can promise you and guarantee you have one in your mailbox. We would not want to put out something that doesn't have errors, so we intentionally made 2 small errors on this, of course. The first one is on the first page, down towards the bottom. We're talking about our rates in the healthcare center, and we talk about private room rate is projected at $309 per day, combined a 4.9% increase. That is not true. It is a 4% increase. So that 4.9 is not accurate. It really doesn't affect anybody in here because those are private pay rates. However, it is an error. So 4%. If you turn to page 3, where it lists the different types of apartments and the fees. If you go down to the bottom, there are two small paragraphs. The first paragraph references the 2019, the fee. It should be 2020, the fee. So those are the two errors that we were able to produce for you. And there you go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We worked long and hard on this budget this year, and did so while handling our bond issue. We took our bond issue and basically took about 90 days worth of work and compressed it into 30 days. And that's no joke. It was unbelievable. I cannot believe we did it, but we knew the market was prime. We knew it was in our best interest to get to market when we did, and it served us very well. We were able, from pre-pricing to final pricing on our bonds, save $1.7 million from what they were estimating. And really what that equates to is the village's debt, the cost of that debt being much less. At the end of the day, we worked closely with 9 institutional investors, answered, in all seriousness, probably 200 to 300 questions, conducted tours, conducted conference calls, really gave them everything they needed to know whether or not they wanted to be a part of this investment, if they wanted to put their funds money into this opportunity. In the end, all 9 investment firms wanted all $35 million of the bonds. So that equates to being 9 times oversold. So what you do is you start ratcheting down that interest rate, and you see how much interest drops off. At the final point where you basically hit right at 35 million, that's when you stop reducing the interest rate. So we're right in there around 4%. I've been told that that is right now the cheapest non-rated debt that has been issued by the municipal bond market. So we are proud owners of the cheapest debt that's ever been issued right now. I'm sure somebody will come out and beat us, but we'll take that spot for a little bit. Anyway, a lot of work was going on while this budget was being prepared. We started in July. We had some goals that we wanted to achieve. First one was we want to continue to provide quality services and care at competitive rates. That is our goal. People think that, well, you can just raise your rates whatever you want. Well, you can, but there is a threshold, and you will lose people and you will lose business. It's a point of diminishing returns. We are very cognizant of that, and we do our best to manage our expenses, so we would never even tread into that area. We wanted to work toward being best in class for operating performance. I think that our resident satisfaction survey spoke to that, and I know our reputation and some of the other things I'm going to talk about here in a minute suggest that we are doing well, and we can always do better, and we will continue to look to do better. But that was a goal. We wanted to increase occupancy at all levels of care: independent living, assisted living, health center, and memory care. We want to provide competitive wages and benefits to our employees. I think the relationship that exists between our employees and our residents is something I've never seen before. It is something that is special. It is something that everyone here appreciates. You saw Chase come up here and the emotions that evoked in Chase. I can tell you that a lot of other employees share that same emotion, that same attachment, and the reality is we have to be competitive with our wages and benefits, and I believe we have made some meaningful strides in that direction. We found that in some areas we were not being as competitive as we had thought, and so that was something that surprised us, but something we had to address in this 2020 budget. We need to navigate the changing healthcare reimbursement system. When I first came into the business in 1997, the health center's Medicare reimbursement changed probably in the most meaningful way it had ever changed. And I didn't know any different because I was just coming in, but the sky was falling, and it was scary times, and we all survived and everything was okay. I will tell you that time is here again, and it is scary. It is very scary. The performance-driven payment model is something that Medicare has rolled out with the best of intentions. I believe they always roll these out with the best of intentions. But it's change, it's drastic change, it's scary change. We have worked our butts off to get in a position to be sure that we are able to deliver success. Jadine and her team have put an unbelievable amount of work in getting prepared for the project, for the PDPM model. And we are closely monitoring that, but that was something that had our concern and something that we, I will say, have conservatively budgeted for, so as to not to get too far out over our skis on that one. Maintain reasonable monthly service fee increases. That is always our goal. I will remind everybody, last year we were at 3%. We tend to not remember those things, but that was something that we were able to achieve, and that was pretty good in my opinion. I tell everybody my goal is always to stay between 3 and 4%. And that's what we are going to do this year. And then, of course, support our routine capital expenditures. The village invests heavily in our capital here. We want to keep this place looking as if it's brand new, despite it being 40 years old. It's something that we do very well. And when we tour people around, we tend to hear that, and this year is no different. We have a very robust capital budget that will continue to keep us in a position of looking nice, new, and that is our goal, and that is exactly what we'll do. How was this budget put together? Well, we work closely with our department directors who work closely with their managers, supervisors, and leads. They want to understand the needs of the department so that we can position ourselves in budget. We tend to start out with everything we would like to have, and then we have to start pulling things out. It's probably not that different from how you approach your own personal budget. We have Life Care Services' financial services team in Des Moines, Iowa, work closely with us and ultimately review our budget before it is presented to our Residence Council Finance Committee and our Board of Directors Finance Committee. We held a collaborative meeting on Friday of last week, and we reviewed the budget, talked about it, and ended up making some changes as a result of that conversation. So a lot of different hands, eyes, and people's touch on this budget. It's not too different from the Quilts of Valor. There's a lot of people involved in this process, and I appreciate everybody's involvement in it. Just something that is important, I think, to understand. To simplify things, the village kind of has cash coming in or revenue coming in from effectively two different sources. Either monthly service fees that you all pay, or the one-time entrance fees that you all paid at one time. Those monthly service fees are really the ones we get from our independent living residents, the folks that live in the cottages, casitas, the apartments, the folks that live over in Nunnenkamp, over in our assisted living, folks that live in memory care in our health care center. All of those monthly service fees that you pay go towards covering our operating expenses. That's our employee wages and benefits, our food costs, our utilities. That is what those dollars are used for, and I think that's important to understand. It would almost be like as if you at home have two paychecks coming in. One paycheck would be to cover all of your living expenses. The other paycheck, or our entrance fee revenue, that cash is used to pay our debt service. We make quarterly payments on the debt that we owe. We make quarterly payments to those bondholders. In addition, the capital budget, which we'll talk about in this presentation today, that too is funded through entrance fees. So we already know what our debt service is because it's effectively a fixed rate, and then we develop our capital budget based upon our needs. You add those two numbers together, and that tells you absolutely how many entrance fees or how many apartments or homes you need to sell that year in order to not have to dip into your savings or into your other pot of revenue, which is monthly service fees. The goal is always to cover your capital expenses and your debt service through entrance fees. We have far exceeded that this year, as well as last year. Some things that drive assumptions. When we put this budget together, a huge part of it is the occupancy. What your best guess at what that occupancy will look like throughout the year. And so we look at all the different areas that we measure occupancy in. The first one is our courtyard apartments. As we know, we have some major renovations getting ready to take place, or actually construction. We're going to be building a new building with the fact that phase 2 coming right behind that. I wish Neil was here to hear me say this, but his team has effectively sold all 40 apartments now. Every single one has been sold. Unbelievable job by his team. We got the last one sold earlier this week on Tuesday, and that was exciting to have all 40. We're not going to stop. There is no way in the world those 40 people are all moving into Friendship Village. It will not happen. So we will try to sell 40, 45, 50, 55. We will start putting people on a list for phase 2. But the reality is, we no longer have courtyard apartments available for sale. There will not be another courtyard apartment sold for Life Care to someone on the outside. All of those apartments are going to be used to take the folks who currently live in phase 2 and find them another home further into the courtyard apartments out of phase 2, so that we're in a position when phase 1 is done and everybody moves in, we can simply go and demolish phase 2 so that we can start building. There's a lot of economies of scale that we could realize in cost savings if we do not have to mobilize, or demobilize and remobilize, if we can just move right into that. But we don't know. We don't know. We're not sure how that's going to go. We're not sure how long it's going to take to get everybody out of phase 2 further into the courtyard apartments. But we do know none of those apartments are going to be sold. And what that's going to do is that's going to affect our overall occupancy. Right now, we are enjoying a very, very strong occupancy, and it continues to grow. We're literally nearing the 100% mark because we've taken those courtyard apartments that are empty out of inventory because they're not available for sale. So that was a big driver in terms of occupancy assumptions. Our Main Street and Garden homes, we have 67 people on a list that have put $10,000 down to say, I am serious about moving into the village. I want on this list and I am ready. Call me and I will come. And so that is powerful. We have $670,000 in our possession right now. And we have it invested, of course, but those folks who have put it down are not earning any interest on that. So just a loan, that's something that's nice. But that gives us a lot of confidence that any Main Street apartment or any garden home that opens up throughout 2020 will be quickly reoccupied. And that is good for you, and that is good for us. Nunn Camp continues to enjoy a very strong occupancy. Our healthcare center, historically, I remember the days where we had 128 and we had somebody going out and somebody coming in and our knuckles were white and we were scared. That day has come and gone. We are now fighting for our occupancy in the healthcare center. People that we have competed with have been doing that for many years. It's finally come full circle, and we now, too, are in that fight with them. I like our chances. And we have hired some people that are strategically there to help us grow that occupancy, because that is a very powerful driver in this budget, especially private pay occupancy. Those are folks that are coming in and paying market rate and effectively helping us subsidize our subsidy to the residents who enjoy the Life Care benefit. Our Medicare census is as strong as it's ever been. We hit a new record this week. We hit 30 Medicare, a census of 30. We have 30 residents, not necessarily residents, people from the outside as well, living at the health center for short-term rehab with the goal of going back home. Right now we have 30 people in there, and that is a huge financial driver for us. We do a good job in managing the expenses and bringing in good, strong revenue from Medicare A. We're going to continue to keep our focus on that. But that is the performance-driven payment model thing that has changed, so we're still kind of scared. We're not exactly sure how it works, but we're keeping an eye on it, and we have conservatively budgeted that census. It's kind of a good news. I mean, we're at like 107, 108 right now in terms of health center occupancy. The big thing is we have less residents over in the health center. That's effectively what it is. We have less residents over in the health center, which is good. I don't think anybody's sitting in the crowd saying, God, I can't wait to get over there and live there. even though it is the greatest health center you would ever have a chance to live in, nobody's saying that, and I understand that, but that's a good thing. Our residents are doing really well, and so that occupancy has gone down. The key is, can you fill those beds with private pay? And that is our goal, that's what we're focused on, and that's what we're going to do. So below average life care occupancy. And then last but not least, memory care. That place is a special spot. I've told people if you haven't been over there to take a look at it, I strongly encourage you. It is absolutely gorgeous. 24 residents living over there. I always joke that I think I would just fake like I had memory issues and just go over there and live and hang out with them. Be a lot of fun. But memory care does. They have strong occupancy over there, and that's very helpful to us. So those are the assumptions that we use to put together the budget that we're going to talk about. We are making the assumption that our independent living apartments and cottages are going to sit on average at 521 out of 558, or 92.9%. Right now, we're closer to 97, 98%. And we're going to fight to stay that high, but with what we have happening in the Courtyard Apartments, it's inevitable that that number is going to drop. None in camp. We are budgeting 63 out of 67, or 94%. Our healthcare center, we're budgeting 109.5. We had to slide a hat. We got a half person living over there. Out of 128, and that brings us up to 85.5%. Our goal is to exceed that, but don't confuse our budget with our goals. Our budget is our budget. Our goals are very different. Our goal would be 100% on all four of these. Memory care is 22 out of 24, or 91.7%. So those are the assumptions that we have plugged into this budget model that drove the revenue that we ended up with. Revenue. What you see on the left are the dollars, and what you see on the right would be the pie graph, just giving you a visual of where the money is coming from. You will see 61% of our revenue is independent living revenue, and that's part of the size. Our independent living is much larger than everything else. 24.5 million is what we've budgeted to bring in from independent living. Health center, we're looking at 11.4 million. None in camp, we're looking at 2.8 million. And in memory care, we're looking at 1.1 million. Other revenue is set at 47,000. In a budget of this size, it's almost less. What is it? I guess it's 3%, it says. No, it's not even on there, so it's pretty small. Employees, people, 60, if we had $1 to spend here at Friendship Village, how do we spend that $1? 66 cents of that $1 goes to pay employees' wages and benefits. 66 cents, which means we have 34 cents left to do everything else. Our employees, we're at 470 FTEs. That is down slightly from what we budgeted last year. We budgeted some FTE additions that operated under the assumption that our health center census was going to go much greater than it has. So we chose not to add those positions. There are other examples of that where we budgeted based upon something happening, and if it didn't happen, we didn't add it. So right now, I think our 2019 budget was at 475. This budget is coming in at 470 FTEs. Budgeted annual increase. We're budgeting an average employee increase. When you sit down with your supervisor, you go through your performance evaluation, and your performance drives your increase. You do not just get an X percent. It's a somewhat complicated calculation. The more you give, the more you get, and that's how it works. We budget 2.5%. You can earn as little as 0%, and you can earn as much as 4%. To get 4%, you almost have to walk on water. It's very, very difficult to get. Realignment of wages due to minimum wage increase. This is probably the most important bullet on this entire slide. You may or may not know that the state has voted to increase minimum wage effective January 1 from $11 to $12. That is about a 9% increase. That is something is artificially driven. That's not something that would have otherwise happened. And so when you are forced to increase your minimum wage, and we have several positions here that fall right at minimum wage, when you're forced to increase that by $1, the other thing you have to do, it's called compression. And what happens is, let's say I came in as a dishwasher 2 years ago, and I was hired in at $11. And 2 years later, I am at $11.75. Let's just, to make it easier, let's say I'm at $12. So I've been here for 2 years, and now all of a sudden, minimum wage goes up to $12. And we hire another dishwasher tomorrow. And this person comes in, and they're making $12. And I'm standing there saying, now wait a second. I've been here for 2 years. I've worked hard. I've gotten my increases. I'm up to 12, and now they're bringing this guy in off the street at 12. As you can imagine, it doesn't go very well. Compression is something that you have to always keep an eye on. We have a fairly sophisticated formula that we used to go back and apply to existing employees' wages that helped us understand where we needed to raise their rates so as to offset that minimum wage compression that is happening. It has to do with years of service. It has to do with your performance. If you were a hardworking, great employee, your bump as a result of this is going to be a little more than somebody that just kind of comes in, flies under the radar, and collects a paycheck. So we've gone through that whole thing, and we modeled that, and we looked at how much it was, and we were like, oh my God, we can't afford to do what we need to do. We can't. There is no way. There is a ceiling that we can be raising these monthly service fees before they get the pitchforks out and the torches and storm the gates. So we had to make a decision to take it and really go half. And we're going to tell our employees that next week. We're taking half of a step as to how far we believe we need to go. We're going to take that first step in 2020. We will take that second step in 2021. But nevertheless, when you have 470 FTEs, which is really 560 employees, you can imagine it adds up pretty quickly. We also are adding some new positions. We are adding some cooks in the Village Cafe, in the Fireside, over in the Healthcare Center, and we are going to be turning the apartment that is adjacent to our Del Fuego Sports Bar into a full kitchen so that we are able to have Del Fuego be a full dining venue. That is going to help us take some of the pressure off of our buffet, our cafe, and our Fireside. We have our plans. We looked at them yesterday. It is going to be really neat. The whole design is really coming together. It's going to take a while to do. We're looking at opening that up probably in September, unfortunately. We're going to push hard to see if we can't make August, but September is what we're looking at right now. But when we open that venue, you got to imagine we're adding cooks, we're adding servers. It's going to be a full functioning dining venue. So those are some of the things you'll see. We are adding some drivers. Our transportation program continues to grow. More and more residents are giving up their cars, which we greatly appreciate, because if you haven't heard, parking isn't so good here at Friendship Village. Probably the worst thing we have. Our drivers are driving more. We are going to be moving all of our employees over to the Resurrection Church, and they're going to be parking over there. We will have a shuttle helping get them over here and ease that burden of parking across the street. We're going to do everything we can to not lose any goodwill with our employees as a result of something we have to do. Groundskeeper, we will be rolling out a community garden later in 2020, and we are going to have a part-time person that is going to be responsible solely for the community garden and helping support our residents that will be using that. We are adding some security personnel. It's a scary world we live in, and we continue to have things happen, and we just physically need more people here to keep it more secure. It's like if you look back and think what the airport used to look like and go through the airport today, it's a whole nother world. And then IT technician, we're adding an IT person. We continue to embrace technology. Our residents can continue to embrace technology, and that demand is growing the need for that department to take its next step as well. If you look at expenses, you will see general and administrative looking right around 5% of our total expenses at 6.7 million. Plant is just behind that, followed by our health center. Really is where the most of our wages take place. You'll see it's at 10,488,000. Assisted living is just under 1.7 million. Environmental services, one of our larger departments, is at 2.8 million. Dining services is at 8.5 million. Resident services is at 2.1, and memory care right at 833,000. So that is where the budgeted expenses fall within the operations of the village. So the big question, beginning January 1, we are going to be increasing monthly service fees by 4%. That is as good as we can do. I know nobody gets excited about their expenses going up. I appreciate that, and I know that. I know it's a cold comfort, but I will tell you, we were interviewing sales directors, and we have made a selection, and we have hired, and they have accepted the position, and we will have them starting on the 14th of November. His name is Mark, and we're pretty excited about that. But in talking to some of the other candidates who did not get the position, we learned that most of the monthly service fees that that their respective communities were experiencing were in the fives. So we are happy to be able to stay under that. If you have friends that live in other communities, I suggest you reach out to them and see what theirs is. All in all, absorbing the amount of the expenses that we're artificially having to take on through the minimum wage increase and the subsequent compression work that we did, I'm happy to keep these at 4%. You will see basically it's 4% across the board. None in Camp Ridley Health Center and Memory Care. Those are really affect people who are here under a private pay basis, so those don't really necessarily affect you in that sense. But that is what we ended up with, is 4% across the board, and that is effective January 1st, 2020. Our capital expenditures. I have a list of a highlight of things that I thought would make sense. Some of the things we spend money on for capital, it's not worth putting on here, but it does add up. You'll see we've budgeted $350,000 all in for the Del Fuego kitchen. Garden homes, folks that live in the garden homes, re-roofing. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. $250,000. Going to refurbish the interior of our elevators. That comes out, there's 4 of them, and that comes out to $60,000. Not cheap to be refurbishing the inside of elevators. Main Street building re-roofing. We're coming up on almost 15 years for the Main Street apartment, so it is time to re-roof that at $160,000. Our healthcare center, also at 15 years, the chillers are starting to show their age and working through that. We're looking at $470,000 there. Additional security cameras. It's cheaper for us to put cameras up and have someone looking at them from the front, from the gatehouse than it is actually hiring employees. So we love our security cameras. They are so helpful, and so we don't have to guess what happened. We can actually see what happened. $66,000. IT, that's running cabling. We're doing fiber out in the cottage area that will help us push high-speed internet out there much better than we are able to right now. Replacing PCs. We have so many PCs on this, personal computers on this campus. It's unbelievable. Server maintenance and a lot of other things you wouldn't understand because I don't understand them. So I just kind of grouped them that way, but that's $210,000. Lots of dining services equipment, silverware, stoves, tilt skillets, refrigeration. A lot of our refrigeration is hitting a wall, coming up on 15 years. And we have the county out here checking our temps all the time. We're starting to get into a zone that we think it's time. So we're going to be replacing some refrigeration. Our boilers that help us keep our water hot, that's $100,000. And then the total capital budget, and when I talked earlier about the debt service and the capital budget, we're looking at $5.3 million. On the debt service, it's like another about, I think, $5 million. So if you can imagine, we need to sell at least $10 million worth of entrance fees in 2020, which we plan to do. So, this is the end of the presentation. Any questions? I asked Emily to find, thank you. So, I know there will be questions, and we have people that do have microphones, and they are ready and willing. If you place your hand in the air, we will come and give you a microphone. Nancy.
This is related to IT, and my question is for the audience. As many of you know, my husband, Bob Dolphin, spoke to his computer. He did not type. And I have all of that equipment. If any of you would like to have set up your computer for voice activation, see me. It would have to be a PC. It wouldn't work on Apple.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, Frank.
Yes, on the new wall along the canal, how much is that going to cost?
We were under 200,000 at the last estimate.
Under 200,000, Frank, and that is not going to be in 2020. The majority of that should be realized in 2019, where it was budgeted. I see another question in the back. I think I saw Roger's hand up.
Well, I was curious on I've got a lot of questions, but I'll go back to the fence since we just went there, because the fence was budgeted several years ago, and then we never built it. So where'd that money go?
So that's a fair question. When you budget these dollars, let's just pretend right now that we don't do any of this. We don't do any of this at all. Really, all it is $5 million that we didn't spend, that we would retain. We keep most of our money in investments, so that $5 million would have remained in investments, or that $350,000 or $400,000, whatever we budgeted for the wall, that would have simply just been cash we retained. It'd be no different than you at home planning on buying a car next year, and you're like, you know what, I don't need that car. Well, what happened to that money? Nothing happened to that money. You just retained it and probably earned returns on that money you didn't spend. Does that make sense?
So in effect, you're saying that that money was added into this budget somewhere.
I'm sorry?
So in effect, you're saying that money was added back into this budget somewhere, or last year's budget? If that's
So
where the
we
fence
did
is?
budget, we budgeted for the wall, I believe, definitely 2 years in a row, possibly 3. So the money doesn't carry over though, no. 12/31 of 19, let's say we've overspent our budget for 2019. We budgeted this much, we spent more than we budgeted, even with not having spent the money on the wall yet. So,
Okay, 4% is the biggest increase I've been under here, so this is, we're over 5 years now.
yep.
I was a bit surprised with the amount of people pouring in here and the amount of money pouring in here that we're up to 4%, in spite of this wage problem you're talking about, I understand. Last year, you said 3%. I ran my numbers, it actually was about 3.4, which they seem to round down to 3.0. I'm just throwing that out there, because there are things I'm seeing here sometimes that I kind of wonder about.
Sure.
You said 66% of our budget's going to employees,
Approximately, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and
Wages
we
and
have
benefits.
560 total employees?
Yeah, about 560 full and part-time employees,
Okay.
when you add them
We're-
together.
So we're basically at an employee for every 2 people here in the village?
Close,
And is that,
but you
see, I don't know
can't,
if that's reasonable or not. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing stuff out. I'm just curious now.
I think the best way to look at it, I mean, that's not exactly the way you would do the math. Really, the thing you look at are full-time equivalents, and a full-time equivalent is a combination of people or a person working 40 hours a week, effectively 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We, of course, are 365 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you wanted to staff a position 8 hours a day for 7 days a week, that's 1.4 FTEs. So yes, 560 employees that are on our payroll. Some might not even work more than 8 hours a week. What you look at is the FTEs, and that's 470 full-time people working 40 hours a week. But yeah, this is a high touch. You know, we're not building widgets. I mean, we're taking care of people, and it is, on average, going to be a much heavier staffed environment than something like, you know, a factory where you're using automation and tools and those types of things.
Okay. Any ramifications on our debt service if the stock market, if and when it tanks?
Well, it's an election year. It's not going to tank, Roger.
At some point after the election's over,
Oh,
is there any ramifications on our debt if there is a big stock market thing? Any of this tied to market stuff?
sure. No, our debt is not a function. Our debt is a fixed rate, and the interest rate that we pay is effectively a fixed rate. So it's not dependent upon the stock market. What we would see is the income. We've had a great year. Our investments have performed very well, which we, of course, just simply reinvest into the portfolio and grow our position. So it's not tied, the monthly service fees are not tied to our investment income really. But of course, if the market tanked, that investment income would slow down, stop, possibly go negative. It really only becomes negative when you realize it, which was like you panic and you sell your stocks. That's not how we behave as an organization. We behave as if we're going to be here for the rest of our lives, and we all know the stock market, while it does fluctuate, will always go up. So we would not realize any of those losses, but we would see a decrease in our investment income, which is not something we like. But, you know, right now, for example, when you go to the bond market and they give you money, there are strings attached to that. They're called covenants. And our covenants, we have two of them. One is days cash on hand. And days cash on hand is basically, if we didn't have a single dollar, you all just said, we're not paying our monthly service fees and nobody's paying anything, how long could we run this place before we ran out of money? Right now, our days cash on hand is 301 days. Our goal would be 365 days. It's never going to happen, but it is a measure that the financial markets look at. The stronger it is, the cheaper your debt. So we're at 301. Our covenant through the bond financing is at 150. So we're effectively a little more than double. Our debt service coverage ratio, which is another very important ratio, is set at 1.2. We are currently at 3.6 or 3.4. So we're almost triple our covenant in debt service coverage, which is huge. If your debt service coverage was at 1 and it cost you $1,000 a month and you had $1,000 coming in, that would be what 1 looks like. So if you can imagine, we're almost triple that. So financially, we're very healthy from that standpoint.
Okay. If somebody wants to hog the mic, but I imagine I'm asking questions somebody has, so I'll keep going unless you want to stop.
No.
Community. Okay, you can come back. I'll put my hand up again.
All right. I saw Walt Blackmore has his hand in the air, Emily.
Yes, Cole. You said like on the wall, and let me, if that was originally budgeted, let's say in 2018, you didn't build the wall, so you put it into the investments.
We just never took it out of the investments. There's no cash transaction on a budget. It's, again, I'll go back, the best analogy I can give is I'm going to buy a car this month, and I decided not to buy that car this month. The money is still in my bank account. It never left. So when you budget a capital budget, again, if we pretend like let's just pretend we don't spend any of this $5 million, we didn't take that money out and set it in my office and we're gonna pull it out. It's still in those investments. It's just money we didn't spend.
Cole, I understand that, because where I'm coming from is, okay, wall's in the 2017 budget. On the basis of that, you set fees for 2018. Okay, so it goes into the 2018 budget because you didn't spend it in 2017. Fees go up to pay for the wall budgeted in 2017. You don't spend that, it goes into investments. And then the same thing in 2019. Is that true?
No. So, and that goes back to one of the other slides I talked about. We've got money coming in from two different areas, right? The operating cost to keep the lights on, to mow the grass, to feed all the residents, to pay all the employees, those dollars are coming from monthly service fees, which is the 4% we're talking about. Entrance fees are what come in and go towards debt service and capital projects. So if we don't spend money on capital projects, that truly is money that we simply retained. The monthly service fee, the 4% that you're seeing, has nothing to do with the capital budget. Totally separate pot of money. Who has the next question? Roger?
You said the community garden is going to get a part-time employee,
Correct.
and I'm not imagining that's like going to be super cheap. How many people are, do we run a survey, I don't know, how many people are going to grow tomatoes or whatever they're going to grow out there, that we're going to add an additional
Right.
employee for it, and we all get to pay for it?
Yeah, I think I think you'll be surprised by how many people do participate in it. You know, it's one of those things like, well, I don't use the fitness center. What are you guys putting people in there for? You know, there are people that use the fitness center, but that I don't. I drive a car. I don't need your transportation. But there are people that use the transportation. The community garden would fall into the same category. And I'll tell you, Roger, over the past 2 years, that has been a huge question that prospects are asking us is, do you have a community garden? It's a thing that people are looking at. We're not going to pay, but you know, when you talk about hourly pay, let's say it's $10 an hour and they're working 40 hours a week. Well, that's not $400 because you got about another 0.33% associated with their benefits. So let's just pretend we're going to pay this community garden person $20 an hour. That's not what we're going to pay them, but I'm putting $20 out there as a number to include the benefits, and they're working 20 hours a week. We're looking at $400. Looking at $400 a week times 52 weeks of the year. We're looking at probably about $20,000. So I mean, if you divide that up by the expenses we're looking at, that's a toothpick on the Titanic. I mean, in all honesty, but it's an important thing. I think we'll get more bang for our buck on that community garden than you think. It'll be, it should be pretty good. And if it's not, you know, I mean, we make mistakes all the time. I'm certainly not going to stay up here and say we're perfect. We roll things out that flop, and we just have to kind of go back. But that's what makes us us, is we're always trying something new. Yes.
At one point in time, I think I heard something about having a PA on site, a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner. Is there any movement on that?
Yes, we do. It is a slow process, and there is a lot of things that are slow. Good Lord, this community garden's taken almost 2 years. We continue to work with Team Health, who is our medical director group from the health center. We sent out the survey. The survey came back very strong. That was strong enough to push them to say, okay, you have our attention. We are willing to take this serious. We're now in the process of kind of working through that, and in all honesty, with the past 3 months, I haven't done a lot with it because this bond issuance and budget really has dominated my time. But we are ready to hit the ground running. We have at least gotten far enough to hear and know that they are willing and want to participate. So we actually looked at a apartment over in phase 2, which is, you know, it's going to be there for at least a couple more years, but we're not going to be selling it. So it's a really neat vacant apartment. I'm telling you, it would be perfect for our nurse practitioner office. So we've kind of have that earmarked. It's a 2-bedroom. You walk in, you got the nice little lobby, and you got the 2 exam rooms on the side. So we've got it identified. Now we just got to get all the logistics figured out, get it, you know, figured out what it's going to cost. You know, there's going to be costs associated with it, figure out how we're going to afford that, and put a plan together. But it is moving. It will happen, I promise. I see a question with Matt, and Emily's coming with the microphone.
Thank you. Cole, about a third of your employee expenses are benefits. What's your fringe benefits package look like?
So we offer a very competitive medical health insurance program. We were staring at, we have an amazing insurance broker. This guy is awesome. He can wheel and deal and do battle with those folks at Blue Cross Blue Shield. They came out of the gates at 16% increase on our employee medical insurance. And we did battle with them, and we had to take we have 3 plans. We have a $1,000 deductible, we have a $2,000 deductible, and then we have a high deductible health plan. I think it's a $2,500 high deductible health plan. If you're young and super healthy, you go into that one and we take out way less money out of your paycheck and you take home a lot more money. If you're somewhere in the middle, you probably go with that $2,000 deductible, and it costs you a little more, but you have a little less skin in the game and you got more insurance behind you. The $1,000 deductible, we had to bump to $1,500. And it's okay, because the reality is there aren't a lot of employers out there offering a $1,000 deductible. We have a very mature workforce. Sometimes our employees are right in there with you. And they love that $1,000 deductible, and it was costing us a lot more money because I think, as we know, as we get older, things aren't as easy as they were, and the medical costs pile up. We're going to move that to $1,500, and we were able to effectively take that 16% increase, negotiate it down to 11%, and by making that change from that $1,000 deductible to $1,500, we got it down to 5.99%. So that was the overall increase. Yeah, it was good, but we still, I mean, you guys can be super proud of the health insurance that we offer our employees. It is really good, and that is where we've chosen to compete, is really longevity, retaining people for the long term, and people that know what's up. That's a big deal. So that part of the benefits package is strong. The other stuff, you know, the short-term disability, the long-term disability, the accidental death and dismember, that stuff is so cheap. It's really almost it's not a factor. Vacation, when you have as much people who have been here as long as they have, which is great, we love it, and we do save money. There's soft costs that are realized by not training and hiring and turning over. That costs you a lot of money. By retaining people, it costs you money too. So a lot of our employees are maxed out on their pay grade. You don't just keep getting increases. There is a cap. And if you hit it, hey, you did great this year, firm handshake, and sorry. Which happens, and it's a bummer. But people love working here so much, they accept it. And we always look at it, and the cap will move. The caps have moved. You know, it's a law of supply and demand, and the workforce shortage being so strong, it's driven wages up, so caps have gone up. The other thing is vacation. A lot of folks have accrued to the max their amount of vacation, and most of the positions here, we can't just say, all right, go have a good fun vacation. It's like, oh crap, we got to fill that position because that person is a very critical role to our operations. So you have expenses associated with that, and I would put those into fringe benefits as well. So on average, at the Village, victims of our success, we retain people a lot longer. Ours would be a little higher than most. But then on the flip side, you know, we don't have people getting injured here very much. Our workers' comp modifier, it's almost like if you've never had a speeding ticket or you had 100 speeding tickets, your insurance would be very different. Our workers' comp, because of the super small amount of injuries that we have here, our modifier is as low as it can go. We don't get sued a lot. We don't have to pay horrendous amounts of money for our insurance to protect us from lawsuits. So we have a lot of soft cost savings too. So I think in the end it all weighs out. You ask me what time it is, I'll tell you how to build a watch. Be no more questions after that one. Any other questions, folks? All right. Very important. I think we all need a happy hour after this. 4 o'clock, Thanksgiving theme. We have smoked turkey sliders and wild turkey Manhattans. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.